Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. Wall Street Journal wrote an article about how they made a 4-day road trip in an EV and how they spent more time charging than they did sleeping, and claim there was no fast chargers en route. But this is simply not true, and we will bust those claims in this video. But it's not like we don't have issues with the charging network, because we do. So I thought I would talk a bit about that in this video, and also about the great new things that have been done to improve our charging network, and some of the stupid things that have been done, and the issues we still have, and why Tesla will probably dominate the charging world as much as they dominate the EV world. So let's check it all out, and let's dive right in. The Wall Street Journal wrote an article about EVs and the charging problem. I rented an electric car for a 4-day road trip. I spent more time charging than I did sleeping. So this is a problem. If you get a bad EV, like the Bolt that can only charge like 50 kilowatt and have a bad charging infrastructure, and the one driving doesn't know anything about EVs, you will get a bad experience like this. But the problem is, this so-called journalist did not get a bad EV. She rented a Kia EV6, a good EV. And the charging network is not as bad as she makes it out to be. She doesn't have a clue on how to do this, which app to use or how to find good chargers, because she claimed they spent more than 18 hours charging on her little 1,000-mile road trip. I made a 3-week road trip last summer around in Europe and drew 5 times as many miles than she did, but charged for far less time than she did. And she claimed there were no fast chargers en route. Sorry, but this is simply just not true, because if you very simply just put the route into a better route planner, you will see you can make this trip as fast as 1 hour and 33 minutes of charging in ideal condition for that car on that route. And a Tesla Model 3 long range would actually be able to do this in just 1 hour and 27 minutes charging. And if it had been a Tesla, she would not even have to know anything, because the car would tell her where to stop for charging and for how long. But anyway, the charging time is only about 10 times quicker than this journalist spent on charging. You can do the whole 1,000-mile trip, including charging, in less time that she spent on charging. This kind of very, and I repeat, very bad journalism spread thought about the electric car, and she might have prevented people from daring to go all electric just yet, and therefore slowing down the transition to clean transport and cleaner air for all of us. Because of her lies or stupidity. I of course don't know if she just wanted to write a hit piece or was paid to say what she said, or is actually this dumb and didn't do any research on electric car before she got into one for the first time and went for a 1,000-mile road trip. Or maybe it just shows us the fact that some people will just use an EV like it's an ICE car and don't know anything about it or what app to use or the charging network. So let's talk a bit about that. So many people still don't get how it works having an electric car compared to an ICE car, and think you use it in the same way. You drive until it's almost empty, and then you fill it up to 100% at a gas station, and that's it. So people also need to learn how it works to understand how it is living with an EV compared to an ICE car. Like the most common question I get from friends and people I meet about EVs: how long does it take to fill it up? Well, what do you mean by filling it up? Well, from 0 to 100, how long does that take? I usually just answer, I don't know, because I never tried it. Or, Well, I spend about 2 seconds filling up my car every day. How long do you spend on filling up your ice car? I of course know, but in reality, I have never tried it because 95% of our driving is our daily commute. So we just plug it in every night and we wake up every morning with a 80% chance because we usually don't use more than 30%. And it takes about 2 seconds to plug it in and it fills up while I'm sleeping. Does your ice car fill up while you're sleeping? No. But what do you do in the morning then, if you only have 10% gas left in the tank? What? You go to a gas station? Well, that seems very inconvenient. So even though I'm just playing around here, it does illustrate the point that having an ice car versus an EV is very, very different. And people need to learn this to understand how much better, in my opinion, it is having an EV compared to an ice car. Well, not in all circumstances, of course. And there is, of course, a big difference between having an electric car and having a Tesla. But I'll get back to that. But let's start with some of the issues we do have with EVs and the charging network, because it is of course not all just perfect. And then get back to what is being done to solve these issues and a few tips on how to do a road trip in an EV. So what issues do we have with the charging network? Well, we still need more of them, but we need the right chargers at the right place, because even though it seems like we have plenty chargers here in Europe, well, not all chargers are equal, because we might have over 300,000 charging points here in Europe by now, but maybe something like 80% of these 300,000 charging points here in Europe are 50 kilowatt chargers or less. Not all of that is bad, as I said, the right chargers at the right place, but even along the highway we will find these slow chargers where you want the fast chargers, so here they are, the wrong chargers at the wrong place. And I saw this on a road trip I did, like this place here where we have 16 Tesla superchargers with 150 kilowatt charging. Great! But if you don't have a Tesla, but any other EVs at this big charging site, well, you do have two 11 kilowatts and two 50 kilowatt to choose from. So these 4 stalls here could deliver less kilowatt combined than one of the Tesla superchargers. And some of these chargers was pretty new. So many energy companies that are building charging stations still don't get it. They still put up like 1 charging stall and call that a station, or maybe 4 stall. Still usually not enough. But Tesla puts up like 16 or 20 stalls, or even put up 50 or 80 or 100 stalls in a big city like Shanghai. And Tesla is putting charging station up on a weekly basis, but I'll get back to that later. But 1 stall is simply useless at this point in time, because the chance of it being free nowadays, especially here in Europe, is not very likely. If you plan on going to that charger with 10% left on the battery, you might not be able to get to the next charger, so you have to wait until the other EVs are done charging. So this is very inconvenient, and if people try this, I do understand why some might say they are not ready for EVs just yet. And also because it kind of get a little bit worse, because a study of public electric vehicle stations in California Bay Area found that only 72.5% of chargers were operational. And this is not just the study that is saying this. I have seen this with my own eyes on my many road trips here in Europe. Last summer on my family road trip around Europe, I saw a couple of times while I was charging at my Tesla supercharger, some of the other EVs was fighting to get their non-Tesla EV chargers to work. And even Herbert Diess, Volkswagen CEO, was on a road trip in his ID.3 that same summer, also going up through Italy, and he said on LinkedIn that the Ionity charger he used many times didn't work and it was unacceptable. Marcus Brownlee also made a video of charging EVs on a road trip where they also experienced how the Electrify America chargers didn't work and they had to go off-route to get a charge, but the Tesla had no problem. So this is not just me saying this. This is Marcus saying this. This is Herbert and me and many others, and also now a new study are saying the same thing, that more than 25% of EV chargers don't work. So what if you go to this store with only 10% left in the battery, and it's not that you have to wait for another EV to be done using this 150 kilowatt stall here, but it doesn't even work, and you don't have enough juice to go to the next charging station, then you are stuck. And this is where Tesla is in a league of its own. Their charging network always work. As they have shown, their chargers uptime is almost 100%. Yes, they did drop a bit in 2020, as you can see here. But remember to check the numbers on the left. Still above 99.5%. This is also why I never have range anxiety, because I know when I get to a Tesla charging station that it works. So I have no problem coming into the charging station with only 5% left on the battery. And of course, on my navigation system in the car, I can even see how many stalls are available. So I will never come to a charging station and get a bad surprise that no chargers are available, because I can actually see if that's the case even before I get there. So if you're living in the US or most part of Europe, you will never really have any of these issues I just talked about if you own a Tesla, because Tesla is the only car company that has actually built the charger network for you and integrated it into the car software. So as long as you let the car know where you're going, you will never really run into any trouble. But we can't all be driving Teslas, so we need the charging network to become better and fast, because the growth of EVs are insane, but the growth of the charging network is not keeping up just yet. Even Tesla is not growing their charging network as fast as their fleet of cars is growing. Like last year, Tesla grew its sales with 87%, but the charging network only grew about 37%. But all this will change, because companies are waking up and seeing what's going on. Like BP, the oil company, has even said it is quickly becoming a better business case for them to fill up an electric car than to fill up an ICE car, especially with the rising gas prices. So like here in Denmark, pretty much all the gas stations are getting in on the action because they don't want to be left out of the future transportation sector. We see Shell putting up fast chargers on their gas stations, so does Statoil, Q8 and OCO Gasoline, and pretty much all the rest of the big ones. So that is in addition to energy companies like E.ON and Clever and many others that are also putting up EV charging stations. And Tesla is making some big move in this space, and here in Europe we already have a handful of countries where Tesla chargers are available for all EV owners. But Tesla is ramping up their charging network in a big way. Firstly, they want to triple the amount of superchargers they have in the next couple of years. So going from about 30,000 chargers last year to 90,000 chargers by the end of 2023 or start of 2024. To put that into perspective, Ionity here in Europe put up about 400 stalls over a 4-year period. So Tesla is going for extreme scale here as well. But it is of course not only the amount of chargers. As I mentioned before, maybe 80% of the chargers are slow chargers like 50 kilowatts or less, so that part of the charging network is kind of already obsolete if they are placed at the highway where we need the fast charging. But Tesla is doing more than just tripling the amount of chargers, because they are of course putting up mostly their new 250 kilowatt chargers, soon to become 300 and 350 kilowatt chargers, and increasing the charging speed just from 150 to 250 kilowatt makes a big difference. Now the stall can handle a lot more cars per day compared to the old 150 kilowatt chargers. So it's not just one more stall, it is one more stall that can deliver about 60% more kilowatts. So not just tripling, but tripling the numbers of stall and 60% increase in output. This is a big move from Tesla, and they are not taking it slow. They are ramping up right now. Right now, Tesla is opening about 10 supercharging stations per week in the US alone. But as I said, we need the right chargers at the right place. So it's not all about superchargers, because as I said, I only use superchargers for maybe 5% of all my driving. So we need the convenience of having an EV for a person that lives in a house that wakes up every morning to a full charge car to spread to the other persons that do not live in a house. And Tesla is also making big moves here together with many companies that are helping Tesla to put up their many smart connectors, like Smart Charge America. That second Jesse from Now You Know just made a great interview with their CEO. If you want to learn more, I will leave a link to that video down below. But Tesla's third generation wall connector, so the slow destination chargers, has also become much better. So now they're smart connectors and can be updated over the air, and they actually talk to each other and don't need a lot of amps to go to them when they're not in use. So instead of putting up maybe 5 dumb connectors and then you can't install anymore because the 6th would kill the building's electric grid, but you might be able to install 30 smart connectors instead because they only use what the building can provide when they need it and share that between the cars. And even more so, they charge up the cars faster that need it the most. So if you have a car with only 20% left on the battery and another one with 60% left, the connectors will give the 20% one a little more juice until they get up to the level of the other one, and then they can charge at same speed unless more cars come in, and the smart connector will turn down the charging speed so all 30 EVs get something instead of only 5 get some and 25 gets none. So this will also help out the grid tremendously and make sure we can get even more chargers up all over the place in hotels, apartment buildings, workplaces, mall, fitness centers, supermarkets, and so on and so on. Simply just flooding the street with destination chargers. And in some countries here in Europe, like Norway, they already have made a law about this. If you're building an apartment building and have a parking lot, you don't have to put up chargers, but you have to make it ready for putting up chargers at every single parking space. And many other new innovations are coming. So chargers are coming, they will be everywhere, and Tesla will be one of the biggest providers of electricity to the entire transportation sector. We just need some of the other companies to learn from Tesla and how they get their charging to be up and running pretty much all the time and make the connectors smart so we don't overload the grid. And we need people to understand how to use an electric car and how much better it is making more stops on your long road trip, because you will get to your destination with a lot more energy than have been driving for 4 hours straight. That's no fun. And driving for that many hours also means you get fatigue and your driving is getting less safe. Driving while tired is just as dangerous as driving with a few beers under the belt. So I will never drive for that long anyway. So I think many people, when they get an EV and are forced to make a road trip like this, will discover how much better a road trip can become when you actually make a few more stops and getting to enjoy the trip instead of being a hassle. So hope you enjoyed the video and learned a few things about EVs and the charging network, and what the Wall Street Journal said was simply not true. And thank you for watching, and until next time, take care out there and be nice.